It has been about 3 months since NAB 2024 in Vegas. I've compiled about 30 takeaways, some small things, some larger things. First big thing, Nikon and Red, the acquisition of Red by Nikon. Basic communications autofocus is mandatory. In my view today, Sony and Canon are the best options. Nikon's photography autofocus, if it's adapted to a true video camera or cinema camera, along with Red's codec and other engineering. Basically, Nikon has no cameras with ND filters or other essential video features, but this type of product development could provide a healthy competition for Sony and Canon, which I think would be great. Question, is there already a strong third option for autofocus that I'm not thinking of? I would love to hear what people think is, 1, 2, 3. For me, autofocus was a primary topic for the whole show. And when I went to Blackmagic Design, that's what I wanted to find out about. The new box camera had a lot of hype, the Pixis. I was able to speak with 3 or 4 Blackmagic Design engineers about autofocus in particular. And at one point I was referred to a senior product person who was very helpful when I asked why they're not competing, in my view, with Sony and Canon in this like autofocus dependent core communications video work market. I was told in detail that the trade-offs in sensor design are significant when it comes to allocating pixels for autofocus, which I didn't know. I was told I might be pleased within months about autofocus advances at Blackmagic. It felt like a scoop, maybe not. Another engineer at some point mentioned LiDAR. I love Blackmagic, it's a great company, but I'm not going to be holding my breath when it comes to autofocus on their cameras. Based on, year to year at NAB, I saw some kind of shrinking or missing show presence things that were kind of interesting to me. I love LTO and asset management kind of tech. The Quantum booth didn't have any reference to LTO in it at all. Panasonic had almost no cameras at all. There was this really clear Panasonic Connect focus, infrastructure and things. They had 4 Lumix cameras on poles that didn't even have power. They were running on batteries. I was a Panasonic fan. My first camera was the DVX 100B. My sense is that Panasonic's not in the camera business anymore. That's what it felt like, but that could also just be what they were doing at the show. Also, when it came to the show itself, a good friend of mine has been going for decades, and it's getting smaller. I love going to the B&H booth. They had this little group called the Gratis Group. Anyway, it's not private label. They're manufacturing their own stuff at B&H. The Amran 300, I was told that it's one of the best-selling lights for the creator economy, the creator market. Right now I'm using a tiny little, Amran 60 or whatever. Over here I have the 200. It's right there. So an full RGB 300 Amran, that's a pretty big light. So apparently it's one of the best selling. There was a Potato Jet branded or co-designed prototype tripod for small rig, which was really just fun to see. It kind of almost didn't work, but it was really cool. It was new technology. It was really fun. You can only see that kind of stuff at the show. I was at a booth called Wasabi that was doing, they call it hot cloud storage. I think a lot about bandwidth getting to and from the cloud. I don't tend to think of the cloud once I get there as being differentiated. Anyway, that's a learning opportunity for me. I figured I need to kind of follow up and understand what that even means. Some companies or some booths were kind of growing year over year, just 2023 to 2024. Athena primes and Atlas lenses, their booths kind of just had, they were bigger, they had a little momentum, a big crowd. So it just kind of made me think that the novelty or the interest in anamorphic and cinema lenses that are more accessible is real. Riverside, which is a company that does podcasting, it just makes me wonder if that's a growing company or if it's a fad. I don't know. I don't know much about the technology. Atomos had stuff very different from 2023 to 2024. 2023 was a cloud-based editing focus. 2024, there were these LED light tubes, a Ninja phone camera to cloud adapter that encodes ProRes. Anyway, it just made me wonder, are they innovating or are they just, doing something totally different or just, keep an eye out on what's going on with that company. There was a small company called Blackjet, $400 for a 4-card reader that had a lot of format support back to old Sony formats. And it just made me think about on a corporate shoot or a corporate team mixing vendors and internal teams. It could ingest 4 different formats at the same time. So third-party ingest piece of hardware that's very specialized like that, I think it's a good idea. OWC, I love, I've had a lot of their stuff over the years. I had a really good conversation with someone there about Soft RAID, which is their RAID software technology proprietary, because it kind of wasn't, it had some problems for me for a little bit. And it sounds like they have rebuilt it, which is great. They have a Jupyter network attached storage that's very similar to something like a Synology, but they have a lot of experience at OWC with like the creative market with things like their Jellyfish. So, if I wanted to get a NAS for creative work that isn't super high speed like the Jellyfish, I'd consider their offering. Okay, another big topic, NDI, which is like, video over networks, over Ethernet. Vendors like Bird Dog, Lumens, Dante. There's quite a big footprint on the floor at NAB just for NDI folks. Although we're still largely in this world of like SDI and HDMI and local signal for cameras, the biggest challenge is apparently 1 gigabit network infrastructure, which isn't really enough for 4K video. So it's kind of almost no market for this like 10 gig Ethernet need, because most companies aren't wired up with 10 gig Ethernet, because it's like an order of magnitude more expensive to have that much bandwidth in a network. It looks like 1080 workflows are what is realistic in the short term. Some of the workflows didn't have any recording at all. So there's no long-term value to the footage. Question here for you on YouTube. Where are you seeing people move to NDI? DJI is fascinating to me. I can't tell if it's like sort of seeking to diversify. I think of DJI as like a drone company, not focusing on autofocus either. So that kind of just makes them not the natural number 3. I'm curious what people think DJI like is really all about now, or what they're going to be about in the future. Okay, I'm just going to wing it here a little bit for fun and do some pure guessing. I'm wondering if next year there'll be a smaller footprint of the entire show. Maybe no West Hall, which is the one across the street. I would anticipate seeing fewer mini symposiums and roundtables for people like me who only get the exhibits pass. Okay, so smaller booths. The Avid booth was really tiny compared to 2023. I was almost like a little surprised. The Adobe booth was still pretty big, but kind of empty. Predictions on biggest splashes next year. Now I'm just making stuff up. Let's have Nikon put the red codec in a mirrorless camera that's kind of like an FX3 with a fixed top handle and some kind of like new reliable E-mount lens adapter for all of us folks who have kind of moved to Sony lately. Catalyst brows and that gyroscopic sensor data thing that Sony has. I think it'd be cool if they licensed that somehow to the Nikon Red camera so they get stabilization without fees. The Sony one, the premium one that's any good, it's 10-bit, it costs money. On the camera front, a 12-bit raw codec Nikon camera with no audio levels on the hardware. With 32-bit float audio coming, I would want to get rid of the little wheel, right? And just have an approximation of the right levels somehow because of 32-bit float, which is kind of like raw audio. DJI, I'm going to make a little prediction that the Ronin 4D is not around anymore. Okay, next year, the biggest, where did it all go? I'm going to go with virtual production. 2023, it was just everything was virtual production. It was even a little bit more minimal in 2024. I think that trend will continue. Maybe this consolidation, and it's no longer like a gold rush. 8K resolution, I feel like we have settled into 4K. I mean, sometimes we'll talk about a bigger sensor, but that's really going to end up being downsampled into some other deliverable. There are no 8K TVs yet. And I don't even know why anyone would do it unless it's 100 inches wide. And then my best guess for things that are exactly the same as this year, B&H, Canon, and Sony. They always look the same. So was it worth it going to NAB? When I went to a trade school, post-production trade school in LA in 2006, this professional editor who had been cutting for like 20 years, he's like, you have to go. You have to go to NAB. And I kind of ignored him, and that was wrong. There is no better way to get a sense of what's going on and to put your hands on hardware. You can just kind of feel trends by just attending for a day or two. I went for one day this year. I flew direct from Denver for about $170. I stayed one night in a hotel that was walkable to NAB for $160. So it was kind of grueling, right? But I got the exhibits pass, which is just, free, just to walk the floor. Total cost was about $500. I got a huge return on it. I took copious notes. A full day for me on the floor there is about 6 or 7 hours. I can even just walk because I just get worn out. I think I'll schedule next year a 90-minute quiet time alone to recap, gather my notes. A few years ago, I just lost tons of stuff. Last year, I did a really good job taking notes. It turned out that my audio notes were the best. I'd use the voice memo app on the phone and just like walk away from a booth and just talk to it. Those were great. Footage, photos, very good. Written notes, less helpful. It just takes too long to write them down. And having stuff at booths to take a look at later, like pamphlets or booklets, sometimes helpful. About half of it I just tossed. It would have been better to read it at the booth and put it back for someone else and maybe make a voice memo about what I thought about it, because you can always get digital copies later. The free show programming had technical challenges and content challenges, so I probably won't plan on doing any of those if I do another one-day visit next year. Okay, some ideas about how to have a better experience in 2025 for me. I should have planned like a solid 2 to 4 hours, like how to attend the show and what I planned to do when I got there. I missed some key vendors. I missed some entire tech, like 360 video. I'd also plan my floor walk, like the sequence, so I don't ever go backwards. I wasted part of my day in the South Hall this year. I think next year I'm only going to capture during the show and not like post to social media. I think digesting the takeaways is more valuable to me and to others. When they're snap thoughts, they're probably not that great anyway. Got to think it through and take in the totality of the show. Next year I'll announce sooner than I intend to go to the show. I did that and I saw some friends, which is great, but I think I could have increased the opportunity to meet more old friends, colleagues, and make some new ones. This year was about autofocus for me. I would like to develop like a stretch goal and allocate some kind of time to like pure research on a relevant topic that like I don't know anything about. Just enjoy that access to engineers and developers and representatives from companies. If anything sounded a little off, please leave a comment. Would love to hear your takeaways, your thoughts. If something was dead wrong, also please add that, of course, so we can get a conversation going and I can learn and we can all learn. Like and subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, all that good stuff. Thanks.